But just because this is hard to believe does not make it unbelievable. People could have written this story with some sort of happy ending in any way they wanted to this horrific thing that happened on Friday. One far better than we have here that would make more sense, that would be easier to sell. Writers do it all the time. Where the hero's lost and all hope is tossed out the window. Right up until the last minute, everybody's on the edge of their seat waiting to see exactly what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden the dramatic music comes on. You ever notice that? Nothing's going on in the movie, but it's the music that turns your belly button. Just like, oh, something's going to happen here. And for those of you that are old enough, like I am, to remember when Return of the Jedi came out originally, way back in early 80s. We're all sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen with Darth Vader and the Emperor, right? Well, when he grabbed onto the Emperor, picked him up over his head and chucked him down into that hole and ended the whole thing, I'm sitting there as a young person, and the whole theater erupts because the hero shows up. Everything is taken care of. Everything is done. It ends the way it's supposed to. We all feel great because that's what we wanted. People cheer. But the problem with that is that's fantasy. It's a great movie, but it's fantasy. Why then is this story in the Bible different? That's a great question to ask. What makes this unbelievable story so believable? What benefit, I would ask, is it for anyone to write about all of the failures of his followers? Of which I include myself. What would it benefit for anyone to write about all the failures of his followers if they were not true? Except for grace, except for hope, except for love, except for truth, so that people would know. Why tell a story of an empty tomb and of a risen Savior whom Rome killed and will kill you if you keep this nonsense up because you're a pest and you're annoying? Rome was in complete control. Why would you risk yourself if it were not true? You see, Jesus, while he was alive, made some very clear claims that this would happen. That God had planned this out all the way before time began. This wasn't something that was happening as a plan B because everything went pear-shaped. Jesus was very clear in Matthew chapter 20. He was going up to Jerusalem, and he took the 12 disciples aside. And on the way, he said to them, we're going up to Jerusalem. And the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and deliver him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified, and he'll be raised again on the third day. This was the third time, the scriptures tells us. This was the third time that he painted a very clear picture. Was it a metaphor that he was trying to map out? Was it, I don't know, symbolic? Was he trying to show them some stuff? Was it a narcissistic delusion of a crazy carpenter who'd come down from the north who had, desires of kingship? Or was it Jesus being very real and very clear about his task and time? Because you see, one of the other fascinating things about this as we lead up to Easter Sunday is that Jesus did every single thing he did in public. In public. We talked on that on Friday night. The miracles that he did were all done very publicly. He didn't hide himself. He wasn't doing that stuff in the back room or a closet. All of the healings that he was doing, they were very evident that people could see them. His teachings, all done in the temple, so that everybody could hear what he was saying. Now, reading the Gospels, this is an interesting thing for us when we take a look at this and go, could this be true? You'll find that those who wanted him dead never once said that all of this stuff is a lie. They never said that these miracles weren't happening. They never said that healings didn't happen. They never said that his teaching was wrong. The problem that they struggle with is that they were complaining that he was breaking the Sabbath by doing all this stuff. Or that he was doing this for the wrong people. Those non-Jewish people, boy, he really wants to have a conversation with them. All of the hookers and tax collectors have a better steak dinner than the Pharisees at the temple, so I'm going to go hang out with them. Well, the Pharisees at the temple are mad. But never once did they deny what he was doing. Never once did they say it was fake. Nothing Jesus did was in secret. There's nothing special about that. There weren't any gold tablets in a cave somewhere where only he had the ability to read. Jesus said everything very publicly. He was very clear. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one gets to the Father but by me. There is not another human being on planet Earth who ever made that claim. If you find somebody who has, please show me. I have not. Not any religious leader since the dawn of time has ever said everything circles around me. That was part of the problem C.S. Lewis had. As an atheist, he was always wrestling with this Jesus, trying to figure out how it is he could disprove him. He's the one that wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He kept looking at Jesus and studying him and the claims that he made in order to disprove him. And he came to this conclusion, as he says in one of his books, that he was dragged into the kingdom of heaven, the most reluctant convert in all of England. He had to admit that this Jesus was true. And he says that he was either a lunatic, a liar, or the Lord that he claimed to be. So he was nuts, or he couldn't tell the truth, or what he was actually saying was true. I asked what benefit it would be for him to be a lunatic or a liar. Rome takes care of people like that very quickly. In order for the way to be made for us, he had to pass through death first. I'm going to be beaten, I'm going to be killed, and on the third day I'm going to rise. And here's the thing. He could have done anything. He could have said something which anyone could disprove. That's what he did. All you need to do is show a body. He didn't make it some sort of spiritual thing, which also means that this is historically verifiable. Jesus rose from the dead. There's no secret rising, that's only for his select few people that know all this mystical garbage. There's no spiritual awakening, that once you're in and you've got the right code, all of a sudden you'll see him and you'll understand it. No. Jesus said, I'm going to die physically, and I'm walking out of that grave physically. That's what I'm doing. And in doing so, death itself is going to be defeated by my death. Now, Paul the Apostle, this is not on the screen, but he records this. I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures, that he was buried and that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Peter, then to the 12, that he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive. In other words, people who saw Jesus, you can go find him, and you can go ask him, is this really what happened? Eyewitnesses. Though some had fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James and to the apostles. Last of all, as the one untimely born, he appeared also to me. Multiple witnesses saw the once dead Jesus very much alive. So the argument that the disciples snuck in and stole the body and started to create this whole myth is also something that is absolutely ridiculous. Because what kind of power are they looking for in perpetuating this? What kind of fantasy are they trying to sell to people? You see, they were so afraid of the Pharisees that they were going to be turned into the Romans, that they've got themselves locked in a room. Remember, it's only the women that are out and about. These guys are in a corner going, I don't know what I'm going to do. Why would they sneak out, try to get by some Roman guards and steal the body? They wouldn't. There's no benefit to that. And then, why would they, these disciples, why would they die violent, horrible deaths for a lie and for a liar? The answer is they wouldn't. None of us would. If some of you remember Watergate, way back in the day, those of you that don't, like I said, the first service, Google it. Chuck Colson, who I really like, he was the guy that ended up in prison because of the things he did at Watergate. Came to Christ in prison and then spent the rest of his life in a prison ministry. It's funny how God works, right? I need somebody in prison to minister to the people in prison, so I'm going to send you to prison. He says this, I know the resurrection is a fact. And Watergate proved it to me. How? Because 12 men testified they had seen Jesus raised from the dead. And then they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Everyone was beaten, tortured, stoned, and put in prison. They would not have endured that if it were not true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world. And they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me 12 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? Absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. Only a fool would die for a liar. This next statement that Mark reports for us is so grace-filled as we come to the end of our message this morning. If you remember nothing else, please remember this. Verse 7 says this, but go, tell the disciples and Peter that he's going before you to Galilee. And there you will see him just as he told you. Go and tell the disciples. And oh yeah, grab the clown. Let Peter know that he is still a disciple. But Peter blew it. Not only did he blow it, he blew it big time. Peter is a liar. Peter is a coward. Peter denied Jesus not once, not twice, 3 times. It's the unpardonable sin for some of the denominations out there full of legalism, and they are lacking grace. Why include that clown? He wouldn't wear the t-shirt in school. Why include that clown? He won't be down on the street corner shoving tracts in people's faces and whacking folks with big Bibles to let people know who Jesus is. Why include him? He didn't witness in the courtyard like he was supposed to. He's a coward. I'll tell you why. One word. Grace. Grace. Every one of us sitting here this morning on this beautiful Easter morning are saved by grace through faith. By grace through faith. We are all debtors to mercy alone. We've got nothing else that we can bring to the throne. We don't need anything else except our acknowledgement of, yes, Jesus is who he says he is. Therefore, you make sure my friend Peter is included in that group. Because there ain't nobody so far gone that they're too far gone that we're going to leave them somewhere. Go get the disciples and Peter. You see, Jesus changed everything. He changed everything. Peter would realize that a few days later as he's walking on the beach on the shores of Lake Galilee when Jesus restored him. He understood the grace of God, and I wonder this morning, do all of us here understand God's grace in our life? Do we understand what he's done for us? If this story isn't true, let's just pack things up, go eat our ham at home, and forget about it. Nothing matters. But if this story is true, then Jesus changed everything. And it all hinges on this Jesus walking out of the tomb. Can we acknowledge that? I want to leave you with this thought. I don't know where any of you are in your walk with the Lord, but don't ever think there's ever a place where you are so far gone again that you are too far gone. Don't ever think for a minute that you have done so much wrong, strayed so far, denied Jesus too many times, that he's actually going to turn his back on you. That's not what the Bible tells us. That you've somehow run so far away that he stopped holding his hand out to you and that he can't see you on the horizon. No, God's grace is seen in the empty tomb. God's grace is seen there. It is seen in the nail-scarred hands of the one who said, I will take upon myself what we deserve. It's in the words of the angel. Tell the disciples and Peter. Tell the disciples and Michael.